Okay, let's begin. Bottom of 19b, the Mishnah. Ve'enosim takshitim lavodos kachavim. We don't make jewelry or ornaments for their idols. Kaltos, umzamim, tabos, which are like apparently chokers, rings for the nose or rings for the ears, or for I guess tabos could be for the fingers, but any kind of jewelry. Rebbe Lazar Omer, bistar mutar. If you're doing it for pay, then you're allowed to do it. It's a little surprising. You can't sell things that are growing in the ground. But you can sell them once they've been harvested, once they've been cut. The Gemara will explain why this is. Rabbi Hillel Omer, you can sell it to them while the things are still growing, if it is understood or it's the condition that they're going to harvest them. Now, what's the whole problem here? What's this? The Gemara wants to know where's this from? Amar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Tanina. Lo Suchanem. When talking about the taking over Eretz Canaan from the contemporary residents, it says about them, idol worshippers, lo suchanem, which is understood here to being like chanaya, a camp or a land holding. So you can't give them any holding in land. Lo titin lem chanaya b'karka. You can't give them land, ownership of land. So things that are still growing are considered part of the land. So that's why there's this dispute over, can you sell them the produce before it's harvested? Is that considered selling them land? So Gemara says, "Hi lo tachanim mivayle dehachi amar ifamar rachmana lo sitain lahem chaim." Wait, we're already using that pasuk. Don't show them favor. Like interpreting this word chanaya or techanem could be interpreted differently, and we have interpreted it differently. Don't give them any favor, meaning you can't speak favorably about them. So if that's what it means, how can it also mean land holding? Right. So Zimkain lemakra lo sechunem. Okay, now we're going to get particular about how the word is spelled. Lo sechunem would have been meaning only speaking favorably, but my lo sechanem, since it changes the form of the word, shmamina tarte, so it means they can move up. When it says leila kasumi baile dachikam rachman lo sitelam matnas shochinam, we already have a second thing attached to this. Don't give them free gifts. So here it's like chinam, right? The word free. So you're already using it for two things. How can you use it for the third thing of land holding? There's another way it could have expressed that. Lo sechinem, my lo sechanem, shmamina kulu. So by understanding the spelling of the word without the yud and without the vav, we're going to use it for these three things. Here we have a supporting brisa. Lo sechanim lo sitin lem chanaya b'karka. Lo sechanim means don't give them landholding. Davar acher lo sechanim lo sitin lem chen. Another thing we get from it is don't speak favorably about them. Davar acher lo sechanim lo sitin lem matnasinam. Don't give them free gifts. So this brisa supports what we're saying. There's three details of lo sechanim, and one of them includes don't give them a landholding. Manas chinam gufe tanahi. Now, the giving them a gift, that's actually a that's actually a machlokas tanaim. Lo detanya, we have a brisa. Lo site lo sochlu kol nevela lagarish b'shurachot tenavachala o machol anachli. Torah says, don't eat nevela. Give it to the ger for him to eat, or sell it to a stranger, to a nachri, a non-Jew. So is the Torah being specific that you can give it as a gift to a ger or sell it to an avi kachavim? And how do you know you can also sell it to the ger? So we're understanding that the verbs apply on both sides to both types of people. Loving kochavim ben sinamina. And what about giving it as a gift to another kochavim? How do you know that? So again, you just split up the pasuk in a way that the verbs can apply to either side, to either noun, to either proper noun, or not proper noun, but either designation of the person. Okay, so it comes out that whether it's a ger or an ovid kochavim, you can either give it or sell it. Divrei Rameir, that's what Rameir says. No, you have to read it more in a more circumscribed way, exactly as it's written. You're restricted from the vela. You can give it only to a ger, and you can sell it only to an ovid kochavim. So giving gifts to a Oved Kochavim is thus subject to this machlokas, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't give a nevela a gift to an Oved Kochavim. You can only sell it to him. And according to Rabbi Meir, you can give it as a gift. And the Gemara says, Shapir Kama Rav Meir. Rav Meir, like what Rav Meir says, makes sense. Like, why does Rabbi Yehuda insist that we split the pasuk that way? But if you want to think that it's that you can give everything to, you can do either gifts or sale to anybody, to either a ger or an kochavim. If that's so, oh, lamali. Why does it say or give it to or sell it to a nachri? Right, the word or indicates that you have to split up the pasuk. That's how I see that it means only giving it to a ger or selling it to a nachri. Rabbi Meir. So why does Rabbi Meir doesn't it say or in the middle? That is to tell us that there's a precedence, there's a preference for it. It's better if you give it to a ger. If you can't give it to a ger, then sell it to a Ovid Kochavim. For Rabbi Yehuda. Kevin the ger ato mesuva lachioso uknani yato mesuva lachioso lachtim will search for. He says, I know this already, right? A ger, who is exactly how you define it is a question, but someone who's more connected to you, who's living among you, presumably he's accepted the Shav Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, so you have an obligation to, for his welfare, which is not the case for Novid Kochavim. So we know that already. So don't tell me that you need the word "o" to indicate it's better to give something to a ger than to sell it to an Novid Kochavim. Okay. So we saw before that the pasuk concludes, don't do them any favors. Don't show them any favor. Don't speak favorably about them. This supports Rav. Rav. So you can't go by an idol and say, "Oh, what a beautiful sculpture! What a beautiful idol." That would be speaking favorably about those kochavim. Meisvei, so they asked, Masi Shimon Gamliel. Shahayel Gabe Mala Harabais. He was on the steps of Harabais, on the temple, mount, the destroyed temple. And he saw a really beautiful statue of an Avodah Zarah. Amar Marabu Masach Hashem. He said, "How great are your deeds, Hashem?" V'af Rabbi Akiva. So he's speaking favorably about an idol. I mean, he is describing sure, it's an idol, but it's a thing of beauty. It really caught his eye. So isn't this speaking favorably about idol worship, about an idol? Rabbi Akiva, even Rabbi Akiva, Ra Eshes Turnus Rufus Harasha, he saw the wife of Turnus Rufus, one of the Roman generals, Rak Sachach Uvacha. He spat, he laughed, and he cried. Rak, he spat, because she's just human. I mean, she may have been beautiful, but he's reminding himself that just like everybody else, she comes from bodily fluids. Nothing particularly appealing about that. Sachak, and he laughed, because he knew that she would convert and he would marry her. Bacha, and he cried, the Hai Shufra Bale Afra, and he cried because such a beautiful woman, she's going to end up like the rest of us, rotting in the ground. So he's among the other things, he appreciated her beauty, and isn't she an idol worshiper? So the Rav. So how would Rav answer that? Like, don't these stories illustrate that you can speak favorably about idol worship? So Rav would say, Oduye hu de komoda. He's praising God. He's not saying how beautiful is that idol. He's saying how great is God that creates beauty. It's kind of splitting hairs. The Yamar, but we have a brisa, but like that, Haroah Brias Tovosam. Whenever you see something beautiful, you make a bracha, Baruch Shekacha Baruch Bi'olam. You make a bracha thanking God for, blessing God for creating beauty in the world. Um, so now the Gemara goes on. Well, wait a minute. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel was, he was admiring this woman, at least Sakule Mishari. Like, how come he can look at a beautiful woman? Meisvei, we have a brisa. Finish marked we called over rot. Protect yourself from any evil thing. Don't stare at beautiful women, even if they're single and you're allowed to sleep with them. But still, don't do it. And also, don't stare at a married woman, even if she's unattractive. Don't even look at their beautiful clothes, their colorful clothes. Don't even look at donkeys, or pigs, or birds when they're mating, right? Even if you are full of eyes like the Malach HaMavis, like the angel of death. Unclear what this means exactly, but like even if you can't help yourself, like you're walking the street, you see women, right? It's like even so, you should be careful not to stare at women so that you don't bring yourself to sin. By the way, about the Malach HaMavis, Shakula Malainayim, that is full of eyes. B'shas Puraso Shachola, when a person is sick and he's dying, Omed Me'al Marasha, so the Malach HaMavis stands at his head. The Harba Shulcha B'yado, he's holding a sword of a Tipa Shalmara Tzliyabo, and he has a little drop of some bitter stuff, like let's call it poison. Kevin Shachola Ro, so when the sick person sees him, Mizdazea Potech, he's like, he gasps and he opens his mouth. And so the Malach HaMavis inserts the poison into his mouth, Mimena, and that kills him. Mimena Masriach, from that he rots, his body rots. Mimena Marikos, and his face turns green or whatever. In other words, that's the beginning of death and decomposition. Okay, that's just a little by the way. Anyway, so the question was, how can Rabbi Shimon Gamliel be looking at women? Where it says Karen Zavisavai, he came around the corner, like he's not looking out for women. He's watching where he's going. He comes around the corner, and what do you know? There's a woman there. So it wasn't that he was he couldn't help it, right? It's he can't not look where he's going. He didn't know there's any women there, and suddenly he's confronted with a woman, and he notices how beautiful she is. We said you can't look at a woman's colorful clothing. Well, even if they're hanging from the wall, like not she's wearing them, not even if she's wearing them, but you can imagine, a woman wearing these beautiful clothes, and that's also negative. That's only if you know whose they are. So if you walk by a store and you see dresses in the window, that's not a problem. But you walk by somebody's home and their washing is hanging from the line, and you know the woman whose clothes it is, then that could lead to your imagining things about the woman. Amarava,
The
Dekaname.
tailor, the seamstress. If a person makes clothes for women, and that's his job, he's making it right. A seamstress, a tailor. He's looking at the kind. In fact, it may be a commission purchase. She says, "Make these garments for me."
Well, maybe maybe a person should, if you're a tailor, you should make your living off men, and if you're a man, and if you're a woman, you should make your living off women. I don't know.
Yeah,
Good
but
question.
there are famous designers. They make clothes for women, and
Uh-huh.
they own stores in Borough Park and women. They're women's
Uh,
clothing stores. I mean,
well, so okay, so if you're a designer, so you don't know the person who's going to wear them, right? I mean, if you have to use
but you
models,
may
that's a
know.
different story.
Right, a person may commission you. To make the princess of England. It says they commission my garment. They make the
Okay,
garment
that could
for
be a
her.
problem. That could be a problem, I guess. Yeah, good question. But we can also see this from the language of the brisa, that it's only when you know the owner. Diktani v'lo b'vigdei seva shel isha, not a woman's clothing. It doesn't just use general. Don't look at beautiful clothes. It says don't look at a woman's beautiful clothes, which indicates what we just said. That's a good proof. This is for, we're talking about, this could answer your question. It's only about old clothes that, she's already worn. But new clothes, so maybe this answers your question that if you make a dress for the queen and she hasn't worn it yet, I mean, never mind, I guess fittings would be a problem. But if you make a dress for the queen and she hasn't worn it yet, then that's not a problem. It's only once she's worn it that you kind of tend to visualize her in the clothing. Because if you don't say that, anon minal ashpure heche yavina. This is essentially a question. How can you give a woman's clothes to be hemmed or finished, right?
Washed.
He has to look at the clothing. So it's okay because it's new clothes and she hasn't worn them yet. I guess you wouldn't let her try it on in front of you, though. That would probably not be appropriate.
They can't. I'm saying here that I should to be laundered. You're saying to prepare to
Yeah, I think it means to be
Kobe's.
yeah, but maybe it's like today.
Kobe's.
If you want alterations, where do you go? You go to the dry cleaner. They've got a tailor there. So maybe that's the story. It's like that's always been part of the job of someone who deals with clothes, not only to clean them, but to make them suitable for use, including alterations. I'm supposed to. Really Tameh. So Gemara says, wait a minute. Hadi Amar Rabbi Yehuda min b'mino muter lahachnis k'mikcha b'shloferes. When you're mating animals of their own kind, you can put the male organ into the female organ like you're putting an applicator in a tube. So it's like I think this is how they breed horses, right? You have to see what you're doing. If you're guiding the animal to mate, yeah, and we said you can't look at an animal while they're mating. Ella bavite turid. So why do we say that it's allowed? Because you're busy with your work. Like if you're trying to get a horse in heat to mate, then you got a lot of other things to worry about, like not getting kicked in the face by the horse. So you don't have any room in your mind for lewd thoughts. So you can say the same thing about a koves, about a launderer or a tailor. That if you're busy with your work, we're not worried that you're going to be imagining things that you shouldn't be imagining. So it's not necessarily a proof. So we spoke before about the malach mamas. Mimena from this poison, that's how you die. Name a pliga de Shmuel. Maybe this is against the father of Shmuel. Shmuel, Amarli malach mamas. The malach mamas told me, likara divriyasa. If not for the honor of people, of God's creatures, have a parana besashita kivahema. I would rip open the throat like an animal. So in other words, the angel of death doesn't want to be so discreet and so gentle. He wants to inflict violent death on people. So what are you telling me that he does this with this poison that's seems to be a little more gentle way to go? Where it says maybe that's what's happening. That what does this poison do? It's like an acid, and it dissolves the windpipe from the inside. So if not for, he would use a stronger poison that would dissolve the whole neck, I guess, if not for a couple of years. And mimena masriach, from that
So this poison
the
cuts
rots.
the trachea and the esophagus, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. From that you start to rot. Rabbi Chanina Barkana, which supports Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Chanina Barkana, Amrei Beit Rav. They said in Rav's yeshiva, so if you want a dead person to be preserved, you have turn it on its face, so that way the poison doesn't spread so easily and it takes longer to decompose. We said before, be careful, guard against any evil thing. Don't think lewd thoughts during the daytime, and you won't have nocturnal emissions. From here, on Pinchas Ben Yair says, Torah brings you to carefulness. Zahirus Mavili De Zerizus, that brings you to being diligent. Zerizus Mavili De Nikius, that brings you to cleanliness. Nikius Mavili De Precious, that brings you to being, it's like separating from your desires. Precious Mavili De Tara, that brings you to purity. Tara Mavili De Chasidus, that brings you to piety. Chasidus Mavili De Anava, that brings you to humility. Anava Mavili De Yerasfed, and that brings you to fear sin. Yerasfed Mavili De Kedusha brings you to holiness. Kedusha Mavili De Ruach HaKodesh, and that brings you to Ruach HaKodesh, to the divine inspiration. Ruach HaKodesh Mavili De Tchias HaMesim, and that brings you to the resurrection of the dead. Chasidus Gedola Mikulam. But the greatest thing in that list is Chasidus, piety. Even though piety seems to be a step towards the end game, which is Tchias HaMesim, but the Brisa says, no, the most important, or maybe it's the hardest thing, is to achieve Chasidus, piety. Shenemar, Az dibarta b'chazon l'chasidacha. Then you spoke in a vision to your Hasidim, those who are pious. So that's an indication that God speaks to those who are pious, so that's like the best thing. Okay. I'm sure we could bring other proof texts about the other things. This is against Rishu ben Levi. Rishu ben Levi. Anava Gedolah Mikulan. Anava, humility is the greatest trait of these. Shenemar Ruach Hashem Elohim Alai Yan Mashach Hashem Osi Levaser Anavim. The Spirit of God it was on me because He anointed me to bring the good news to those Anavim, to humble people. Hasidim will never Anavim. It doesn't say Hasidim, it says Anavim. So I'm saying that humility is the best. Okay, back to the Mishnah. You can't sell them produce that's attached to the ground, still growing. You can sell them a tree on condition that they chop it down, and they chop it down, and you're okay. Then they're not really buying land; they're buying the wood, and that's okay. No, you have to cut it down first, and then sell it to them. Don't sell it to them while it's still attached to the ground, because that's like selling them land. Shachas almanasli, those vigozes, you can sell them. Shachas is like unripe produce, on condition that when it's mature, then they'll harvest it, and then they do harvest it. That's okay. No, you have to wait till it's actually harvested, and then sell it to them. Kamal manasli sarvakot. So you can sell them grain, like standing grain. This is more mature. You can sell it on condition that it be harvested, and they harvest it. You can only sell them harvested grain already. I'm not sure what the difference is between the shachas and kama. It seems to be like the same thing. So there's some discussion here about how grown it is and so on, but basically the positions are the same.
It's cut down. When Rameir says it's cut down, right?
You can only sell it once it's been harvested. And now the Gemara will say why you need all three cases. It's three.
So what's the question you had between the difference cut down and harvested? Is it saying it the same thing?
Yeah, exactly. And now the Gemara says why do you need all three cases? Yes, Elon, if we only told me about wood, about trees, well, how come Rabbi Meir, Kevin Lo Pasid Mashi lay? Since you can leave the tree standing for as long as you want, the lumber is still going to be the same value. So maybe he's going to wait till next year to cut it down. In the meantime, he's essentially owning the land. So that could be a problem. But the grain, right, that if you don't harvest it in the right time, it'll wither, right? Then it'll lose its value. So that the guy, it's in his interest to actually harvest it. So it's fine if for a short time he owns it while it's still standing, because he's going to harvest it. But I might think that their mayor will agree that that it's okay to sell it to him. So no. So the Brisa tells us even there, Rav Meir says don't sell it to him while it's still standing. And if we don't have the first two cases, mishum lo yadia shivchayu, because you can't really tell that. So it's like unripe stuff that you need to let it grow in order for it to maximize its value, whereas ripe grain, you need to cut it right away. But you can't really tell the difference. Like the passerby, who knows that the land that the produce was sold won't really see the difference. So Aval Shachas the idea Shivchayu, but the unripe stuff that that it's still going to grow and that's why it's still standing. Hey, Mayor, maybe Rabbi Yehuda would say that you can't sell it because he's going to leave it standing. And if the Brisa only told us of the unripe grain, Rabbi Meir, that's where Rabbi Meir would say that you can only sell it once it's cut. But in the case of the ripe grain, where he's going to cut it right away, maybe he would admit, Rabbi Yehuda, that it's okay to sell it because it's just a short time that it's going to be standing. So the Mishnah says no. In all these three cases, they hold their opinions. Rabbi Yehuda says it's okay to make the condition to sell it as long as he's going to harvest it or cut it down. And Rabbi Meir says no, you have to actually cut it down first before you sell it. They ask. Now, what about selling an animal to an idol worshiper on condition that that it has to be slaughtered? Um, so um, so there's a problem in selling animals to an idol worshiper because he's going to work them on Shabbos. So if you sell it on condition that it be slaughtered, that's not a concern. So is that the same machlokas of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir? So what are the two sides here? Sometimes of mine, sorry, Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Rabbi Yehuda allow you to sell produce or wood that's still growing? Why does he permit that? Because like after the sale, they're not under his control. He can't just leave them standing because it's in your field and you're going to say to him, like, look, if you don't cut this down, I'm cutting it down. Okay, because it's in your field.
But he sold it, right? Didn't he already
He
sell it?
sold the tree. He's not technically he's not selling the land, but he's selling the tree that's attached to the land or the produce that's attached to the land. And since you're still the owner of the land, you can say, look, this is on my land. If you're not cutting it down, I'm cutting it down because it's on my land. Sure, it's still yours, but I'm going to cut it down and give it to you. So maybe that's why Rabbi Yehuda says it's allowed. Of a behema, but in the case of the behema, where you transfer the ownership and the control of the animal to the other kochavim on the sale, given the rishus the other kochavim kaimei, mashile, he doesn't have to. He can slaughter it, 6 months from now. In the meantime, he'll work it on Shabbos. So maybe that's still a problem. Or maybe we don't make that distinction. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't make that distinction. Tashma,
Wasn't that a concern that he would
so Rabbi Yehuda,
work the animal
maybe Rabbi
on
Yehuda
Shabbat?
doesn't. So maybe Rabbi Yehuda doesn't have that concern because you made this. Once you made the condition, you're kind of off the hook. It's not your fault that the animal's working on Shabbos because you sold it to be slaughtered. So you're going to tell me, but Rabbi Meir is right that you could work it for 6 months and then slaughter it. So Rabbi Yehuda, I don't know why that doesn't concern him. Maybe by making the condition, you have kind of engaged in a legal stratagem that gets you off the hook.
Well, is he making the condition, or is the Gentile saying,
The seller,
I'm buying it to slaughter it?
It's part of the agreement of sale. So whoever, presumably the Jew proposed, it doesn't matter who proposes it. They both agreed. So it's part of the condition of sale. Tashma. So let's see if we can resolve this. The time you have a brisa. If you sell an animal to an Ovid Kochavim on condition that it be slaughtered, and then he slaughters it. Then you have to slaughter it. You're Rabbi Yehuda. No, you have to sell him you have to slaughter it before you sell it to him. So we see they have the same machlokas as they do about the grain. from this price.
So who slaughters it
we-
according to Rabbi Yehuda?
I'm sorry.
According,
Unclear,
he says he slaughters it.
unclear.
The
It
shochet.
seems like the Jew is going to slaughter it because the Jew is the one that cares. Um,
So
that's what I think it
what's
means.
so how's that different from Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir says only if it's slaughtered.
No, Rabbi Meir says you have to slaughter it first, and then you can sell it to him because it can't work
Right.
on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says it's okay if you sell it to him while it's alive on condition, once the sale is complete, he owns the animal, right? Then you shaft it. Rabbi Meir says no, it doesn't work that way because what if you don't succeed for whatever reason to shaft it? Then the guy can still have it work on Shabbos. So it's better if you first slaughter it, then it's fine to sell it to him. Rabbi Yehuda says it's fine if you make the condition. That's good enough.
Right. So when it says almanat lishchot v'shochet, who's the shochet here? The Rabbi Yehuda or
Unclear.
the non-Jew?
It seems to me it would be the Jew, right? Because he's the only one who cares.
So it's on the condition that it be shechted, and if you don't do it,
But you've already done the sale.
right, the sale is done. So he said, even though if you sold it, done the sale, I can go into your yard and check the animal because that's part of the condition.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, that seems a little strange, though. How do you go on someone's property and?
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Unclear. That's a good question. But the point of the brisa proves that you can sell it even while it's still alive, if there's a condition to shaft it. I guess what it means is you can rely on the deal that it is actually going to be shafted.
Yeah. And what about the case earlier at the beginning? Where he can give it to a ger, but sell it to a nachri, right? So isn't that referring to an unslaughtered animal, right? The animal wasn't.
That's in the Vela. No, we're talking about
It's
the
an
Nevela,
avela
so
though,
it's already dead.
right? So how can you give if it's my question is how can you give a nevela to a treifa or nevela, but how can you give it to a ger? He's a Jew, isn't he?
How
How
can
can
you
you give
give
a
it?
nevela to the ger is already considered a
Oh,
Jew?
no. I think we're talking about a ger toshav, a shavim mitzvahs b'nei Noach ger, not a converted ger. That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, so it's a toshav, ger
Yeah,
toshav.
yeah.
That's what I was a little confused by that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I should have made that clear.
Certainly couldn't give it to a full-fledged ger.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay. Have a good day.
okay.